The cub watches her with those pale blue eyes that seem to hold a question no 3-week-old should have to ask. Why doesn't she want me? Sarah knows she's crossing a line. Once you intervene, you own the outcome. If she picks up this cub, she becomes responsible for his survival, his future, everything he'll become or fail to become. The research center won't approve. The reserve management will challenge her. Some colleagues will accuse her of anthropomorphizing, of letting emotion override scientific objectivity. The hyena calls grow closer. Sarah makes her choice. Sarah moves in a crouch, keeping her body language non-threatening. The white cub watches her approach, every muscle in his tiny frame coiled tight. His ears flatten against his skull. He's terrified, but too weak to run. "It's okay," Sarah whispers, though she knows her words mean nothing to him. It's her tone that matters. Low, steady, calm. "Nobody's going to hurt you." She's 3 feet away when the cub makes his decision. Instead of fleeing, he takes one stumbling step toward her, then another. His legs give out and he collapses into the dirt, too exhausted to maintain even fear. Sarah's heart clenches. She closes the distance and gently scoops him into her arms. He weighs almost nothing, maybe 4 pounds, when he should be closer to 6. His white fur is matted with dust, and his ribs show clearly beneath his skin. How long has Nala been denying him milk? The cub's body tenses in her grip, then gradually relaxes. Sarah feels the rapid flutter of his heartbeat against her palm. She tucks him inside her field vest, creating a makeshift pouch where he can't fall. His small head emerges near her collarbone, those blue eyes blinking up at her. "Yeah," she murmurs, heading back toward the vehicle. "You're going to be okay now. I promise." It's a promise she has no right to make. But she makes it anyway. Behind them, from deep in the grass, comes Nala's distinctive grunt, a sound that freezes Sarah mid-step. The lioness has noticed. Sarah turns slowly, scanning the vegetation. There, 50 meters away, Nala stands at the edge of the tree line, watching. Their eyes meet across the distance. For a moment, Sarah thinks the lioness might charge. 300 pounds of muscle and fury defending her territory, her decision. But Nala simply stares, her expression unreadable. Then she turns and vanishes into the shadows with her remaining cubs. Sarah releases a breath she didn't know she was holding. "She let me take you," she whispers to the cub. "She could have stopped me, but she didn't." The drive back to the Mara Research Center takes 40 minutes on roads that are barely roads at all. Sarah keeps one hand on the cub the entire time, feeling for his breathing, his warmth. He doesn't cry, doesn't struggle, just watches the world bounce past through the open window, his small face serious in a way that breaks her heart. The research center sits on the eastern boundary of the reserve, a cluster of modular buildings surrounded by electric fencing, built to keep curious wildlife out and expensive equipment in. Sarah pulls up to the veterinary clinic, a converted shipping container equipped with exam tables, diagnostic tools, and a small surgical suite. Dr. James Omondi, the center's other wildlife vet, looks up from his microscope as Sarah bursts through the door with the cub cradled against her chest. "Sarah, what?" James stops mid-sentence, his eyes widening. "Is that?" "Leucistic cub, 3 weeks old, rejected by his mother. He's dehydrated and malnourished." Sarah lays the cub gently on the padded exam table. Under the fluorescent lights, his white fur seems to glow. "I need to get fluids in him immediately." James crosses the room in 3 strides, his professional training overriding his shock. He's been Sarah's colleague for 2 years, a Kenyan native who grew up in Nairobi and returned to his homeland after veterinary school in Edinburgh. His hands are steady as he examines the cub, checking gums, listening to heart and lungs, palpating the tiny abdomen. Temperature's elevated. Heart rate's too fast. Significant dehydration. I'd estimate 7 to 8%. James reaches for a pediatric forecatheter. "When did you find him?" "An hour ago." His mother walked away. Deliberately. Sarah preps the injection site, her movements automatic after years of practice. The other two cubs are healthy. She made a choice. Can't say I blame her. James murmurs, though his tone is sympathetic. A white cub in the Mara? He'd never survive to adulthood. Every predator and poacher within miles would target him. He's not in the Mara anymore. Sarah's voice carries an edge that makes James glance up. He's here, under our protection. Sarah, James sighs, recognizing that tone. It's the same one she used when she fought to save the elephant calf with the infected leg, the one everyone said should be euthanized. The calf that's now thriving in a sanctuary in Nairobi. You know the protocols. We're researchers, not a rehabilitation center. Then we'll find him a rehabilitation center. Sarah gets the 4-line placed on her second attempt. The cub's veins are tiny, collapsing from dehydration. But first, we keep him alive. The cub whimpers as the needle punctures his skin, but he doesn't fight. Just watches Sarah with those impossible blue eyes, as if he understands she's trying to help. James prepares electrolyte solution while Sarah calculates the drip rate. They work in synchronized silence, years of partnership making words unnecessary. The cub receives subcutaneous fluids, a bump of hydration under his skin that his body will absorb slowly over the next few hours. We need to get calories in him, Sarah says, examining his gums again. He's too weak to nurse properly, even if we had a surrogate. Formula. James is already mixing specialized lion milk replacer, high in protein and fat, designed to mimic Lioness milk as closely as possible. He prepares a small bottle with a premature infant nipple. Let's try this. Sarah lifts the cub, supporting his head with one hand. She touches the nipple to his mouth, and he latches immediately, sucking with desperate intensity. Formula dribbles down his chin. He chokes, coughs, tries again. Easy, little one. Easy. Sarah tilts the bottle to slow the flow. Not too fast. The cub drinks for 90 seconds before exhaustion overtakes hunger. He slumps in Sarah's arms, milk-drunk and finally relaxed. His eyes drift closed. His breathing deepens into sleep. James watches with an expression Sarah can't quite read. He's beautiful, he says quietly, and completely vulnerable. You realize the odds, right? Even with perfect care, hand-raised cubs have a 20% survival rate in the first month. The cub watches her with those pale blue eyes that seem to hold a question no 3-week-old should have to ask. Why doesn't she want me? Sarah knows she's crossing a line. Once you intervene, you own the outcome. If she picks up this cub, she becomes responsible for his survival, his future, everything he'll become or fail to become. The research center won't approve. The reserve management will challenge her. Some colleagues will accuse her of anthropomorphizing, of letting emotion override scientific objectivity. The hyena calls grow closer. Sarah makes her choice. Sarah moves in a crouch, keeping her body language non-threatening. The white cub watches her approach, every muscle in his tiny frame coiled tight. His ears flatten against his skull. He's terrified, but too weak to run. It's okay, Sarah whispers, though she knows her words mean nothing to him. It's her tone that matters. Low, steady, calm. Nobody's going to hurt you. She's 3 feet away when the cub makes his decision. Instead of fleeing, he takes one stumbling step toward her. Then another. His legs give out and he collapses into the dirt, too exhausted to maintain even fear. Sarah's heart clenches. She closes the distance and gently scoops him into her arms. He weighs almost nothing, maybe 4 pounds, when he should be closer to 6. His white fur is matted with dust, and his ribs show clearly beneath his skin. How long has Nala been denying him milk? The cub's body tenses in her grip, then gradually relaxes. Sarah feels the rapid flutter of his heartbeat against her palm. She tucks him inside her field vest, creating a makeshift pouch where he can't fall. His small head emerges near her collarbone, those blue eyes blinking up at her. Yeah, she murmurs, heading back toward the vehicle. You're going to be okay now. I promise. It's a promise she has no right to make. But she makes it anyway. Behind them, from deep in the grass, comes Nala's distinctive grunt, a sound that freezes Sarah mid-step. The lioness has noticed. Sarah turns slowly, scanning the vegetation. There, 50 meters away, Nala stands at the edge of the tree line, watching. Their eyes meet across the distance. For a moment, Sarah thinks the lioness might charge. 300 pounds of muscle and fury defending her territory, her decision. But Nala simply stares, her expression unreadable. Then she turns and vanishes into the shadows with her remaining cubs. Sarah releases a breath she didn't know she was holding. "She let me take you," she whispers to the cub. "She could have stopped me, but she didn't." The drive back to the Mara Research Center takes 40 minutes on roads that are barely roads at all. Sarah keeps one hand on the cub the entire time, feeling for his breathing, his warmth. He doesn't cry, doesn't struggle, just watches the world bounce past through the open window, his small face serious in a way that breaks her heart. The research center sits on the eastern boundary of the reserve, a cluster of modular buildings surrounded by electric fencing, built to keep curious wildlife out and expensive equipment in. Sarah pulls up to the veterinary clinic, a converted shipping container equipped with exam tables, diagnostic tools, and a small surgical suite. Dr. James Omondi, the center's other wildlife vet, looks up from his microscope as Sarah bursts through the door with the cub cradled against her chest. "Sarah, what?" James stops mid-sentence, his eyes widening. "Is that?" "Leucistic cub. 3 weeks old. Rejected by his mother. He's dehydrated and malnourished." Sarah lays the cub gently on the padded exam table. Under the fluorescent lights, his white fur seems to glow. "I need to get fluids in him immediately." James crosses the room in 3 strides, his professional training overriding his shock. He's been Sarah's colleague for 2 years, a Kenyan native who grew up in Nairobi and returned to his homeland after veterinary school in Edinburgh. His hands are steady as he examines the cub, checking gums, listening to heart and lungs, palpating the tiny abdomen. Temperature's elevated. Heart rate's too fast. Significant dehydration. I'd estimate 7 to 8%. James reaches for a pediatric forecatheter. "When did you find him?" "An hour ago." His mother walked away. Deliberately. Sarah preps the injection site, her movements automatic after years of practice. The other 2 cubs are healthy. She made a choice. "Can't say I blame her," James murmurs, though his tone is sympathetic. A white cub in the Mara? He'd never survive to adulthood. Every predator and poacher within miles would target him. He's not in the Mara anymore. Sarah's voice carries an edge that makes James glance up. "He's here. Under our protection." "Sarah," James sighs, recognizing that tone. It's the same one she used when she fought to save the elephant calf with the infected leg, the one everyone said should be euthanized. The calf that's now thriving in a sanctuary in Nairobi. "You know the protocols. We're researchers, not a rehabilitation center." "Then we'll find him a rehabilitation center." Sarah gets the 4-line placed on her second attempt. The cub's veins are tiny, collapsing from dehydration. But first, we keep him alive. The cub whimpers as the needle punctures his skin, but he doesn't fight. Just watches Sarah with those impossible blue eyes, as if he understands she's trying to help. James prepares electrolyte solution while Sarah calculates the drip rate. They work in synchronized silence, years of partnership making words unnecessary. The cub receives subcutaneous fluids, a bump of hydration under his skin that his body will absorb slowly over the next few hours. "We need to get calories in him," Sarah says, examining his gums again. "He's too weak to nurse properly, even if we had a surrogate." Formula. James is already mixing specialized lion milk replacer, high in protein and fat, designed to mimic lioness milk as closely as possible. He prepares a small bottle with a premature infant nipple. "Let's try this." Sarah lifts the cub, supporting his head with one hand. She touches the nipple to his mouth, and he latches immediately, sucking with desperate intensity. Formula dribbles down his chin. He chokes, coughs, tries again. "Easy, little one. Easy." Sarah tilts the bottle to slow the flow. Not too fast. The cub drinks for 90 seconds before exhaustion overtakes hunger. He slumps in Sarah's arms, milk-drunk and finally relaxed. His eyes drift closed. His breathing deepens into sleep. James watches with an expression Sarah can't quite read. He's beautiful, he says quietly, and completely vulnerable. You realize the odds, right? Even with perfect care, hand-raised cubs have a 20% survival rate in the first month. Then we're in the 20%. Sarah carries the sleeping cub to a warming kennel, essentially a modified incubator lined with soft towels. She settles him inside, adjusting the temperature to 90 degrees. I've seen animals survive worse. Not the point. James leans against the counter, crossing his arms. Even if he survives, what then? He can't be released. He'd be killed within days. And no reputable sanctuary will take an animal that requires this level of intervention. We'll figure it out. Sarah watches the cub sleep, his small chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. One day at a time. The clinic door opens and Margaret Kamathi enters, the research center's director, a formidable woman in her 50s who spent 30 years in wildlife conservation. She takes one look at the white cub and her expression hardens. Dr. Chun. My office. Now. Margaret's office smells like coffee and paperwork. Maps of the Mara cover the walls, marked with pride territories, migration patterns, poaching incidents. She sits behind her desk and gestures for Sarah to take the chair opposite. Explain, Margaret says simply. Sarah does. She describes the morning observation, Nala's rejection, the cub's condition. She keeps her voice level, professional, presenting facts rather than emotions. But Margaret knows her too well. You intervened in a natural process. Margaret's tone isn't angry, just tired. You removed an animal from the wild without authorization. You've potentially compromised our entire research study on pride dynamics. The alternative was watching him die, which happens every day in the wild. Lion cub mortality rates are already 60% in the first year. This cub's chances were even lower. Margaret removes her glasses, pinching the bridge of her nose. Sarah, I understand the impulse. God knows I've felt it myself. But we have rules for a reason. Rules that would have let a 3-week-old starve to death. Rules that recognize we can't save every animal. That nature has its own wisdom, harsh as it may seem to us. Margaret leans forward. What happens next? We raise him to adulthood, then what? Release him to be killed? Keep him in captivity forever? Send him to some roadside zoo? I don't know yet. Sarah meets her director's gaze steadily. But I know I made the right choice. Margaret is quiet for a long moment. Finally, she sighs. He stays for 2 weeks. That's it. In that time, you find him a placement at a legitimate sanctuary, one with proper facilities, experienced staff, and room for a lion that will grow to be 400 pounds. If you can't find placement, we contact the Kenya Wildlife Service and let them make the call. 2 weeks isn't enough time. 2 weeks is what you get. And Sarah? Margaret's expression softened slightly. This comes out of your research time. James handles your observation duties while you deal with this. Understand? Sarah nods. It's more than she expected, honestly. Margaret could have demanded the cub be removed immediately. Thank you, Sarah says, standing. Don't thank me yet. Margaret replaces her glasses. You've taken on a massive responsibility. That cub's survival is on you now. His quality of life, his future, all of it. I hope you're ready for that weight. Sarah returns to the clinic to find James bottle feeding the cub, who's awake and crying for food. The sound is pitiful, a high-pitched mewing that sounds more kitten than lion. Hungry little guy, James says, smiling despite himself. Already finished 2 ounces. That's a good sign. Sarah takes over, letting the cub nurse while James updates his charts. We need to establish a feeding schedule. Every 3 hours for the first week. Then we can space it out as he gains weight. You planning to sleep in here? If I have to. Sarah watches the cub's small paws knead against the bottle, instinct driving him to stimulate milk flow the way he would with his mother's belly. He can't be left alone. If his temperature drops, or he aspirates. I know. James pulls up a chair beside her. I'll take night shifts. We'll rotate. Sarah looks at him, surprised. I thought you said. I said the odds are bad. I didn't say I'd let you fight them alone. James reaches out and strokes the cub's head with one finger. Besides, Margaret's right. You've claimed him now. That makes him our responsibility. Both of us. The cub finishes eating and Sarah burps him like a human baby, supporting his head while patting his back gently. He produces a tiny belch that makes both vets laugh, a moment of levity in the tension. He needs a name, James says. Sarah hasn't let herself think about names. Names create attachment, and attachment makes loss unbearable. But looking down at the white cub nestled in her arms, she realizes he stopped being an anonymous research subject the moment she picked him up. Ghost, she says softly. His mother treated him like he was already gone. Invisible. But he's not. He's here, and he's real, and he's going to survive. Ghost. James tries the name, nods. Yeah, that fits. They settle Ghost back in his warming kennel. He protests briefly, then curls into a tight ball, his tail wrapped around his nose. Within seconds, he's asleep again, the deep, absolute sleep of infants who've been fed and feel safe. Sarah sets an alarm for 3 hours from now. She should go back to her quarters, shower, eat something. But she can't bring herself to leave. Instead, she pulls up a chair beside the kennel and opens her laptop, beginning the search for sanctuaries that might take a leucistic lion cub. The list is depressingly short. Darkness falls over the Mara like a curtain dropping. The sounds outside shift, birds replaced by insects, the distant cough of a leopard, the yipping chorus of hyenas on the hunt. Inside the clinic, fluorescent lights hum softly, creating an island of brightness in the African night. Ghost wakes at 9 p.m., crying for food. Sarah prepares his bottle, the routine already becoming familiar. Warm the formula to body temperature. Test it on her wrist. Check the nipple flow. Ghost latches eagerly, his small body vibrating with the intensity of his sucking. There you go, Sarah murmurs, watching his eyes drift half-closed in contentment. Good boy. That's my good boy. She's careful not to hold him too much during feeding. Lion cubs need socialization, but too much human contact can create problems later: dependency, habituation, failure to develop proper social signals. It's a delicate balance, providing care without replacing his species' identity. But tonight, with Ghost so fragile and the weight of responsibility crushing down on her chest, Sarah lets herself hold him a little longer than necessary. Lets herself feel the warmth of his small body, the trust in how he relaxes against her. James arrives at midnight to take over the watch. He brings coffee and chapati from the center's kitchen, still warm. Any changes? He asks. Took 4 ounces at the last feeding. No vomiting, no diarrhea. Temp is stable at 101.5. Sarah passes him the chart. He's due for another feeding at 3. Go sleep, Sarah. You've been here for 18 hours. She wants to argue, but exhaustion makes her sway on her feet. You'll call if anything changes? I'll call. James settles into the chair she's vacated. Promise. Sarah makes it back to her quarters, a small room in the residential building with a bed, desk, and tiny bathroom. She showers in 3 minutes, falls into bed without bothering to dry her hair, and sleeps dreamlessly until her alarm shatters the darkness at 5 a.m. She's back in the clinic by 5:15, relieving James for the morning shift. Ghost is awake, crying, his small face scrunched with displeasure. Sarah scoops him up, performs a quick health check. Eyes clear, nose damp, no discharge anywhere, then prepares his bottle. You've got good lungs for such a little guy, she tells him as he nurses. That's good. You'll need them. The morning feeding goes smoothly. Ghost drains 5 ounces and falls asleep immediately after, milk-drunk and satisfied. Sarah uses the quiet time to continue her sanctuary search, sending emails to facilities across Kenya, Tanzania, and South Africa. By midday, she's received 3 responses. 2 are polite refusals. No space, no resources for special needs animals. The third is more promising. A sanctuary outside Nairobi that specializes in big cats, with experienced handlers and proper enclosures. They're interested but want more information, medical records, photographs. Sarah documents everything. She takes detailed photos of Ghost from multiple angles, highlighting his condition, his coloring, his alert responses. She writes up his medical history, all 24 hours of it. She creates projections for his care needs as he grows. She's drafting the email when James returns, looking worried. "We have a problem," he says. Sarah's stomach drops. "Ghost?" "No, he's fine. The problem is outside." James jerks his thumb toward the window. "You've got visitors." Sarah crosses to the window, and her breath catches. A Land Rover is parked outside the clinic. Expensive, newer than anything the research center owns. 3 people stand beside it. 2 men in safari gear and a woman with professional camera equipment. "Press," James confirms. Someone tipped them off about the white cub. They want photos, an interview, the whole story. "How did they even?" Sarah stops, realizing it doesn't matter. News travels fast in small communities. Someone from the center saw Ghost, mentioned it to someone else, and now it's public knowledge. "Margaret's stalling them," James says. "But they're not leaving until they get something." "And Sarah?" He pauses, choosing his words carefully. This could actually help. If Ghost's story goes public, it might pressure sanctuaries to take him. Public interest means donations, visibility, support. Sarah's instinct is to refuse. Ghost isn't a publicity tool. But James is right. They need all the leverage they can get. 10 minutes, she says finally. Photos only. No holding him. And I control the narrative. The interview happens in the clinic with Ghost visible but protected in his kennel. The journalist is a woman named Rebecca from a Nairobi wildlife magazine, professional and respectful. Her photographer keeps his distance, using a telephoto lens to capture Ghost without disturbing him. Why did the mother reject him? Rebecca asks, her recorder running. Leucism makes him too visible, Sarah explains. In the wild, that's a death sentence. Lions rely on camouflage for hunting and avoiding danger. A white cub compromises the entire pride's safety. But you saved him. I intervened, Sarah corrects. Whether I saved him depends on what happens next. We're searching for a sanctuary placement where he can live safely, with proper care and companionship. Will he ever be able to return to the wild? No. Sarah meets Rebecca's eyes directly. Ghost will need human care for his entire life. That's the reality of intervention. We've taken responsibility for his future. The photographer gets his shots. Ghost sleeping. Ghost yawning to reveal tiny teeth. Ghost watching them with those striking blue eyes. Rebecca promises to focus on the sanctuary search in her article, to include information about how readers can help. After they leave, Sarah feels drained. Ghost is awake, crying for his afternoon feeding. She prepares his bottle on autopilot, the movements now routine. You're going to be famous, little one, she murmurs as he nurses. Hope you're ready for that. Ghost, unconcerned with fame, focuses entirely on food. His small paws press against the bottle, his eyes squeeze shut in concentration. Sarah watches him and feels the weight of all the strangers who will now be watching too, judging every decision she makes, every step of Ghost's journey. The pressure should terrify her. Instead, it feels like armor. Let them watch. Let them judge. She'll prove that Ghost deserves this chance, that intervention was the right choice, that some lives are worth fighting for no matter the odds. Day 3 brings the first real crisis. Ghost wakes at 2 a.m. screaming. Not his normal hungry cry, but a sound of pure distress. Sarah, sleeping in a cot she set up in the corner of the clinic, jolts awake immediately. Ghost is convulsing in his kennel, his small body rigid, legs paddling uselessly. Foam flecks his mouth. His eyes roll back. James! Sarah's shout echoes through the empty clinic. She scoops Ghost out of the kennel, supporting his head, checking his airway. The seizure lasts 15 seconds, an eternity, before his body goes limp. James crashes through the door, still pulling on his shirt. What happened? Seizure. Checking vitals now. Sarah's hands move with practiced efficiency. Heart rate elevated but strong. Breathing shallow but present. Temperature spiking at 104. Could be sepsis or neurological. James prepares an injection of diazepam, anti-seizure medication that might prevent another episode. Any injury? Trauma? Nothing. Sarah accepts the injection, administers it subcutaneously. He was fine at midnight. Perfect feeding, normal temperature. They work through the night, monitoring Ghost's every breath, every twitch. Blood work shows elevated white cell count. Infection, but where? X-rays reveal nothing obvious. Ghost drifts in and out of consciousness, occasionally crying weakly. By dawn, Sarah is terrified. Ghost's temperature won't drop below 103, despite medication. He refuses his bottle for the first time, turning his head away from the nipple. Sarah. James's voice is gentle. We need to discuss the possibility. No. She cuts him off. He's fighting. Look at his respiratory effort, his heart rate. He's not giving up. I know. But if he's suffering, he's not suffering. He's sick. There's a difference. James doesn't argue further, but Sarah sees the doubt in his eyes. She's seen it before, in colleagues who think she's too emotionally invested, too unwilling to make the hard calls. Maybe they're right. Maybe she should be more objective. But looking at Ghost, his white fur now damp with sweat, his small body trembling despite the warming lights, Sarah knows she can't give up. Not yet. Not while he's still fighting. Hour 8 of the crisis brings breakthrough. Ghost's temperature drops to 102.5. His eyes open and track movement. He makes a sound, not a cry, but a little chirp of recognition when Sarah leans over him. Hey, baby, she whispers, her eyes burning with exhaustion and relief. Welcome back. By hour 12, Ghost is demanding food, crying with his usual insistence. Sarah prepares his bottle with shaking hands. He latches and drinks 4 ounces without stopping, then looks at her as if to say, Where have you been? Tough little fighter, James says, watching Ghost settle back to sleep. I'll admit, I had my doubts. So did I. Sarah collapses into her chair, suddenly aware that she hasn't slept in 30 hours. But he's stronger than he looks. The blood cultures come back 2 days later. Bacterial infection, likely picked up from his time alone in the wild. The antibiotics are working. Ghost is going to be okay. But the crisis has taught Sarah something crucial. Ghost's survival isn't guaranteed. Every day is a battle. Every feeding, every temperature check, every moment of vigilance matters. There's no room for complacency, no space for assuming he'll be fine. She adjusts her schedule, her life, her entire world to revolve around Ghost's needs. She learns to read his cries. Hungry versus scared versus uncomfortable. She memorizes his rhythms, his preferences, the way he likes to sleep with his paws tucked under his chin. By day 7, Ghost has gained a full pound. His ribs no longer show. His fur, cleaned and brushed, gleams like fresh snow. His eyes are bright, curious, taking in everything around him with growing confidence. Rebecca's article publishes in both print and online, accompanied by those haunting photographs. The response is immediate and overwhelming. The sanctuary's email inbox floods with messages, offers of donations, volunteers wanting to help, schools asking about educational programs. And then, on day 8, an email arrives that changes everything. It's from someone named Dr. Elena Volkov, director of the Samburu Wildlife Conservancy, a facility Sarah has never heard of. The message is brief. I can give Ghost a home. Not a cage, a home. Call me. Sarah's hands tremble as she dials the number. Dr. Elena Volkov has a voice like smoke and honey, a Russian accent softened by decades in East Africa. She answers on the second ring. Dr. Chun, thank you for calling. I've read about your white cub. Ghost, Sarah says. His name is Ghost. Ghost. Elena repeats the name with approval. Good name. Fitting. Tell me, Dr. Chun, what are your plans for Ghost? Long term. Sarah outlines the situation honestly. The sanctuary search, the limited options, the complications of housing a leucistic lion. Elena listens without interrupting. Most sanctuaries would warehouse him. Elena says when Sarah finishes. A cage, regular meals, maybe some enrichment. He'd be safe, but empty. Is that acceptable to you? No. Sarah's answer is immediate. But I'm not sure what other options exist. Come see my facility. Bring Ghost. Let me show you what's possible. Elena pauses. We're in Samburu County, northern Kenya. 4 hours from you. Come tomorrow. Stay as long as you need to make your decision. Sarah should consult with James, with Margaret, with the entire research team. Instead, she hears herself say, "We'll be there by noon." She hangs up and immediately starts second-guessing. Who is Elena Volkov? Why has Sarah never heard of Samburu Wildlife Conservancy? What if this is some exotic pet situation, some wealthy eccentric wanting a white lion as a trophy? But something in Elena's voice, the certainty in her tone, the way she said home instead of enclosure, it felt right. James agrees to accompany her for the drive. Margaret grants reluctant permission, warning Sarah not to make any commitments without a full facility inspection. Ghost, now 10 days old and thriving, sleeps in a modified cat carrier in the back seat, wrapped in soft blankets. The drive north takes them through landscapes that shift from grassland to scrubland to the arid beauty of Samburu. The air grows hotter, drier. Acacia trees the horizon like sculptures. Elephants move in the distance, their silhouettes wavering in heat shimmer. The Samburu Wildlife Conservancy sits at the base of a rust-red mountain range, surrounded by 30 square kilometers of private land. The entrance is understated, just a wooden sign and a dirt road. But as they drive through the gates, Sarah's breath catches. This isn't a facility. It's a vision. Large, naturalistic enclosures sprawl across the landscape. Not cages, but habitats, with trees and rocks and water features. A pack of African wild dogs lounges in the shade. Cheetahs sprint across a massive paddock. And there, in an enclosure that must be 5 acres, 2 lions rest under an acacia tree. Elena meets them at the main building, a woman in her 60s with silver hair, sun-weathered skin, and eyes that miss nothing. She greets Sarah with a firm handshake and peers into the carrier at Ghost. "May I?" she asks. Sarah nods. Elena opens the carrier and lifts Ghost with the easy confidence of someone who's handled 1,000 predators. Ghost blinks up at her, curious rather than afraid. "Beautiful," Elena murmurs. "And strong. I can see it in his eyes. He's a fighter." He is. Sarah watches Elena examine Ghost with professional thoroughness, checking teeth, paws, condition. "He had a bacterial infection last week. Nearly lost him. But you didn't." Elena returns Ghost to his carrier gently. "Come, let me show you why I called." The tour takes an hour. Elena walks them through the conservancy, explaining her philosophy. Animals aren't exhibits, they're residents. Each species has space, enrichment, social groups when possible. The goal isn't entertainment, it's quality of life. "I started this 20 years ago," Elena explains as they watch the lions. "After years in zoos, circuses, rescue centers that were really just prisons. I wanted something different. A place where animals could be animals, even in captivity." "It's incredible," James says, and he's right. Sarah has visited dozens of sanctuaries, and this is different. Better. But it's what Elena shows them next that stops Sarah's heart. They walk to an enclosure on the property's edge, smaller than the others, but still spacious, maybe 2 acres. It's empty currently, but beautifully designed with varied terrain, a stream, natural cover. "This was meant for a breeding pair of caracals," Elena says. But the deal fell through. It's been sitting empty for 3 months. She turns to face Sarah directly. It's Ghost if you want it. Not forever. Eventually, he'll need more space. But for his first year, while he's growing and learning, this would be his. Alone? Sarah asks, her heart sinking. Lions are social animals. Solitary confinement, even in luxury, seems cruel. Elena smiles. Come with me. One more thing to show you. They walk to another building, climate-controlled, softly lit, smelling of clean straw and milk. Inside, a female lion lies in a large pen, nursing 3 cubs. She's older, her muzzle graying, her body scarred from years in the wild. This is Zara, Elena says quietly. Rescued from a roadside zoo in Ethiopia 5 years ago. She's raised 6 litters of orphan cubs for me since then. She's the best mother I've ever known. Patient, protective, gentle. And right now, she's nursing 3 cubs who lost their mothers to poachers. Sarah watches Zara with the cubs, seeing the tenderness in how she grooms them, how she positions herself so the smallest can reach her teats without competition. You want Zara to raise Ghost, Sarah says. I want to give him a family. Elena leans against the pen railing. He'll need to be introduced carefully over several days. We'll monitor constantly. But if Zara accepts him, and I believe she will, Ghost will grow up with siblings, with a mother figure, learning to be a lion. And when he's older? James asks. When he's older, he stays with his adopted siblings if the bonds are strong. Or he joins one of our bachelor coalitions if he's more solitary. Either way, he has choices. Agency. A life. Elena looks at Sarah. That's what I can offer Ghost. Not just survival, but a life worth living. Sarah feels tears threaten and blinks them back. Why? Why go to all this effort for one cub? Because every life matters. Because Ghost didn't choose to be born different. And because, Elena pauses, her expression softening. 20 years ago, I worked in a circus in Moscow. We had a white tiger there, bred deliberately for her color. She lived in a cage barely large enough to turn around. Performed twice a day. Died at age 7 from stress-related illness. Elena's eyes are distant, haunted. I think about her every day. I can't save her now, but I can save Ghost. Sarah looks at James, sees her own emotions reflected in his face. She thinks about Ghost's mother, walking away to protect her pride. About the odds stacked against this small white cub from the moment he was born. About the choice Sarah made to intervene, and all the choices that have followed. I need to see him with Zara, Sarah says. I need to know he'll be safe. Of course. Elena nods. We'll do a controlled introduction. You'll be present for every step. And Dr. Chen? If at any point you're not comfortable, Ghost stays with you. No pressure, no judgment. His welfare comes first. Always. The introduction process begins the next morning. Elena's team has prepared a neutral space. A small indoor pen where Zara can meet Ghost without the pressure of defending territory or existing cubs. Sarah carries Ghost into the building, her heart hammering against her ribs. Ghost is 2 weeks old now, almost doubled in weight, his legs stronger and his voice more confident. He chirps at Sarah, kneading her arm with tiny claws that will someday be deadly weapons. You ready for this, little one? She whispers. You're about to meet someone very special. Zara enters the space first, brought in by Elena and a handler named Jabari who's worked with the Lioness for 3 years. Zara is massive compared to Ghost, 350 pounds of muscle and maternal instinct. Her amber eyes scan the room, assessing threats. Sarah sits in the corner with Ghost in her lap, making herself small and non-threatening. Elena positions herself nearby, ready to intervene if needed. Let Zara approach at her own pace. Elena instructs. Don't force interaction. Ghost's scent will tell her he's a cub, but his color might confuse her. We need to give her time to process. Zara crosses the space slowly, her gait relaxed but curious. She pauses 5 feet away, nostrils flaring as she catches Ghost's scent. Her ears swivel forward. Ghost sees her and freezes. Every instinct is probably screaming danger, massive predator, unfamiliar smell, unknown intent. But after a heartbeat, Ghost makes a sound Sarah has never heard from him before. A chirp pitched specifically for adult lions, the sound cubs use to announce their presence to the pride. Zara's expression shifts. Her ears soften, her posture lowers. She takes another step closer. That's it, Elena murmurs. She's recognizing him as a cub. 3 feet away now. 2 feet. Zara extends her neck, sniffing Ghost from tail to ears. Ghost holds perfectly still, his small body trembling slightly. Then, slowly, Zara reaches out with one massive paw and gently, impossibly gently, touches Ghost's head. It's the gesture a mother lion uses to reassure her cubs, to communicate safety and acceptance. Ghost responds instinctively, pushing his head into her paw, seeking more contact. Zara rumbles, a sound like distant thunder, rising from deep in her chest. It's a purr, Sarah realizes. The lioness is purring. She's accepted him. Elena breathes, wonder in her voice despite all her years of experience. I've never seen it happen this fast. Sarah watches, tears streaming down her face now, without any attempt to hide them, as Zara lowers herself to the ground and nudges Ghost toward her belly. Ghost needs no encouragement. He stumbles forward and begins rooting along Zara's stomach, searching for a teat with the single-minded determination of a hungry infant. He latches and begins to nurse, his small paws kneading rhythmically. Zara curves her body around him protectively, creating a shelter with her bulk. She grooms his head with her rough tongue, the gesture both practical and affectionate. He's home, James says quietly, standing beside Sarah. Look at him. He's finally home. Sarah can't speak. The weight she's been carrying for 2 weeks, the terror of Ghost dying, the pressure of finding him placement, the constant vigilance and sleepless nights. It cracks open in her chest and releases. Ghost is safe. Not just alive, but genuinely safe, with a mother who will teach him and siblings who will play with him in a future that holds more than just survival. The introduction session lasts 30 minutes. When it's time to separate them, slowly, gradually, to prevent stress, Ghost protests loudly, crying for Zara. The lioness responds with soft grunts, clearly reluctant to let the white cub leave. We'll increase their time together gradually. Elena explains as they return Ghost to his carrier. Tomorrow, an hour. The next day, 2. By the end of the week, if all goes well, Ghost moves in permanently with Zara and her cubs. Sarah nods, not trusting her voice. She spends the rest of the day at the conservancy, documenting everything, taking notes on Zara's behavior, Ghost's responses, the facility's protocols. James reviews their medical equipment, their emergency procedures, their staff qualifications. Everything checks out. More than checks out. Samburu Wildlife Conservancy exceeds every standard Sarah could hope for. That night, sleeping in the guest quarters Elena provides, Sarah dreams of Ghost grown large and strong, running across the savanna of his enclosure with other lions, his white fur catching sunlight like a banner of survival. She wakes before dawn and goes to check on him. Ghost is asleep in his carrier, but he makes little noises in his sleep, the sounds of a cub dreaming, perhaps remembering the warmth of Zara's belly, the safety of her presence. You're going to be okay, Sarah whispers, knowing it's true now in a way it hasn't been before. You found your family. Day 5 of the introduction brings a complication. Ghost is thriving with Zara, nursing well, gaining weight, becoming more confident. But when Elena introduces him to Zara's 3 other cubs, everything changes. The cubs are all around 4 weeks old, slightly bigger than Ghost, and already roughhousing with each other. 2 males and a female, all tawny, all perfectly camouflaged. Ghost enters their space, and they freeze, staring at him with expressions Sarah can only describe as shocked. For a moment, nobody moves. Then the larger male cub, the boldest of the 3, approaches Ghost slowly. He sniffs, Pulls back, sniffs again. Ghost tries to play bow, the universal signal of friendly intent. The male cub hisses. Before Sarah can react, Zara is there, inserting herself between Ghost and her biological cubs. She doesn't hurt anyone, doesn't even growl, just positions herself as a barrier. Then she does something remarkable. She picks Ghost up by his scruff and carries him to the far side of the enclosure, away from the others. She sets him down gently and begins grooming him, but the message is clear. Not yet. They're not ready for you yet. Damn, Elena mutters. I was afraid of this. What does it mean? Sarah asks, her stomach nodding. It means the cubs see Ghost as different. Too different. They might accept him eventually, but Elena trails off, watching as the three tawny cubs huddle together, pointedly excluding Ghost from their group. Sarah's heart breaks watching Ghost try again and again to approach his potential siblings, only to be rejected each time. Zara protects him, but she can't force the others to accept him. By the end of the session, Ghost is exhausted and confused, crying in a way that sounds almost like heartbreak. That night, Sarah sits with Elena in her office, both women nursing glasses of whiskey. What do we do? Sarah asks. If the cubs won't accept him, we keep trying. Socialization takes time, sometimes weeks. The cubs might come around once Ghost's scent becomes familiar. Elena swirls her drink thoughtfully. But we need a backup plan. If the cubs continue to reject him, keeping Ghost with them could damage his development. He needs positive social experiences, not constant exclusion. You're saying he might have to be raised alone after all. I'm saying we need to be flexible. Elena leans back in her chair. I have a 2-year-old male named Tao in one of the northern enclosures. He's a singleton, came to us at 6 months after his mother was killed. Never bonded with our other lions, prefers human interaction. I've been considering retirement placement for him, but she pauses. What if Tao becomes Ghost's mentor? A teenage male with an infant? Sarah's skeptical. Tao is gentle, patient. He has a caretaking instinct I've rarely seen in males. Elena pulls up video footage on her computer. Watch this. The video shows Tao with a young leopard cub that was temporarily housed near him. Through the fence, Tao grooms the cub, plays gently, even brings him parts of his meals. His behavior is protective, almost parental. Lions can form unusual bonds, Elena says, especially individuals like Tao who've experienced isolation themselves. He understands what it's like to be different, to not fit the normal social structure. He might be exactly what Ghost needs. Sarah watches the video 3 times, seeing the gentleness in Tao's interactions, the clear affection. It's unconventional, risky even. But looking at Ghost's situation, conventional solutions haven't worked. Let's try it, she says. Tao is beautiful, a young male lion in his adolescent awkward phase, all legs and oversized paws. His mane just beginning to fill out in reddish-brown tufts. His eyes are intelligent, curious, tracking Sarah and Ghost as Elena leads them to his enclosure. We'll start with fence introduction, Elena explains. Let them see and smell each other without physical contact. Tao's never hurt anyone, but I don't take chances with cubs. They place Ghost's carrier near the fence. Tao approaches immediately, his gait loose and interested rather than predatory. He sniffs at the carrier, rumbling low in his chest, not threatening, just talking. Ghost, remarkably unafraid, chirps back. Tao's ears perk forward. He lowers himself to the ground, bringing his face level with the carrier, and makes another sound, a sort of questioning grunt that Sarah's heard mother lions use with their cubs. He's asking if Ghost is okay. Elena translates, her voice full of wonder. He recognizes Ghost as vulnerable. Sarah opens the carrier's front, allowing Ghost to approach the fence if he chooses. Ghost doesn't hesitate. He toddles right up to the chain link and presses his small face against it, separated from Tao by just inches of wire mesh. Tao extends his tongue through the fence and gently grooms Ghost's head. Ghost pushes into the contact, purring, a sound Sarah hasn't heard from him before. That's it, Elena breathes. They like each other. The fence introduction lasts an hour. By the end, Ghost is trying to squeeze through the fence links to reach Tao, and Tao is pacing anxiously, clearly wanting to be closer to the cub. The bond is instant, undeniable. Elena makes the call, supervised direct contact the next day. That night, Sarah barely sleeps. The what-ifs spiral through her mind. What if Tao's instincts shift and he sees Ghost as prey? What if the size difference leads to accidental injury? What if Sarah is making another choice that puts Ghost at risk? But morning comes, and with it, clarity. Ghost needs this. He needs companionship, socialization, another lion to teach him what Sarah never can. Tao might be unconventional, but he's offering what Zara's cubs wouldn't: acceptance. The direct introduction takes place in a large indoor arena with multiple escape routes and Elena's entire team present. Tao enters first, calm despite the unusual circumstances. Ghost is placed in the center of the space, tiny and white and impossibly vulnerable. Tao sees him and goes completely still. 4-5 heartbeats, nothing happens. Then Tao walks forward slowly, each step deliberate and careful, the way someone might approach a butterfly they don't want to startle. He reaches Ghost and lowers his head, sniffing the cub from nose to tail. Ghost stands perfectly still, instinct telling him this is a test. Tao completes his inspection, then does something that makes Sarah's eyes burn with tears. He lies down. He makes himself small, reduces his intimidating size, and gently nudges Ghost toward the warm space between his front legs. Ghost, with the trust only the very young possess, crawls into that space and curls up against Tao's chest. Tao wraps one massive paw around the white cub, holding him secure, and begins to purr, a sound so deep Sarah feels it in her bones. Well, Elena says quietly, I think we have our answer. Over the following days, Tao's devotion to Ghost becomes total. He carries Ghost everywhere in his mouth, the way a mother would. He shares his food, tearing meat into pieces small enough for Ghost to attempt. He plays with Ghost with extraordinary gentleness, letting the cub climb on him, bite his ears, attack his tail. Most importantly, Tao teaches Ghost to be a lion. He demonstrates stalking behavior, shows Ghost how to use his claws, engages in the play fighting that builds strength and coordination. Ghost, thriving under this attention, grows bolder, more confident, more himself. Sarah watches their bond deepen and feels something she hasn't allowed herself to feel since this all began: hope. Real hope, not just desperate optimism. Ghost has found his family, not the one he was born into, but the one that chose him. On Ghost's 4th week of life, Sarah makes it official. Ghost will stay at Samburu Wildlife Conservancy permanently. Elena draws up the paperwork, making the transfer legal and binding. Ghost becomes a permanent resident, with Tao designated as his companion animal. The Mara Research Center throws a small celebration. Margaret brings cake. James gives a toast about miracles and stubbornness, and everyone crowds around Sarah's laptop to watch the latest videos of Ghost and Tao playing. You did it, James tells Sarah quietly. Against impossible odds, you saved him. But Sarah shakes her head. I just gave him a chance. Ghost saved himself. And Tao. She pauses, watching footage of the young male grooming Ghost with patient tenderness. Tao gave him a reason to keep fighting. That night, Sarah returns to Samburu to check on Ghost one last time before heading back to the Mara. She finds him asleep in Tao's enclosure, tucked against the bigger lion's belly, both of them snoring softly in perfect contentment. Elena stands beside her at the observation window. You can visit whenever you want. He's still your boy, in the ways that matter. Thank you, Sarah says, and the words encompass everything. The risk Elena took, the home she's provided, the future she's given Ghost. For all of this, thank you for trusting me with him. Elena's smile is gentle. Not every researcher would have intervened the way you did. Ghost is lucky you were there that morning. Sarah thinks about that, about luck, fate, timing. About a white cub born different, and a mother who walked away and a human who couldn't. About a gentle male lion who'd been waiting, perhaps, for someone to need him the way Ghost did. I think we were all lucky, Sarah says softly. She leaves Sambaru at dawn, driving back to the Mara as the sun paints the landscape in shades of gold and amber. Her heart aches. She'll miss Ghost's weight in her arms, his small sounds in the night, the way he looked at her with absolute trust. But he's where he belongs now. Safe, loved, becoming exactly who he was meant to be. The story should end here. A perfect resolution, all threads tied up neatly. Ghost survives, finds a family, gets his happily ever after. But nature, as Sarah is about to discover, has one more twist in store. 3 months pass. Sarah settles back into her research routine, documenting the Mara River Pride, publishing papers, mentoring interns. She visits Ghost every 2 weeks, watching him grow from a tiny cub into a confident juvenile. His white fur remains pristine, striking against Tao's reddish coat. The bond between them strengthens daily. Ghost is learning to hunt, attacking the enrichment toys Elena's team provides, practicing his stalk on unsuspecting birds that land in his enclosure. Tao supervises everything, correcting form with gentle swats, demonstrating technique with patient repetition. Sarah documents all of it, building a photographic and video record of an unprecedented cross-age lion bond. Rebecca's original article has been picked up by international outlets. Ghost has become a symbol of hope, proof that different doesn't mean doomed. Then, on a Tuesday morning in late October, Sarah's phone rings. Elena's number. Sarah answers while preparing her observation equipment. Sarah. Elena's voice is strained, unfamiliar. You need to come to Sambaru. Now. Sarah's blood goes cold. What happened? Is Ghost? Ghost is fine. But. Elena pauses, and Sarah hears something in that silence that terrifies her. Just come. Please. As fast as you can. Sarah makes the 4-hour drive in 3, her mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Disease outbreak. Equipment failure. Some kind of injury she doesn't know about yet. She arrives at Sambaru with her hands shaking on the steering wheel. Elena meets her at the entrance, and Sarah's heart nearly stops. The older woman looks like she's aged 10 years, her face drawn with exhaustion and something else. Grief? Fear? Elena, what? Just follow me. Elena's voice is hoarse. You need to see this yourself. They walk past Ghost's enclosure. Sarah catches a glimpse of him playing with Tao, both lions healthy and active, and continue to the far end of the property. To a section Sarah's never visited before, an area Elena mentioned was under construction for new residents. There's a temporary holding pen here, the kind used for new arrivals during quarantine. And inside that pen, lying in the shade of a tarp stretched overhead, is a lioness. A tawny lioness with a distinctive scar across her left shoulder. A scar Sarah has documented in her field notes dozens of times. Nala. Sarah stops walking, stops breathing. How? Poachers, Elena says flatly. She was caught in a snare 3 days ago, along with 2 other members of her pride. The others didn't make it. Nala survived, but barely. The Kenya Wildlife Service contacted me. They know we have medical facilities, space for recovery. They brought her here yesterday. Sarah stares at Ghost's mother, trying to process this impossible coincidence. Nala is thin, her breathing labored. The snare wound on her hind leg is infected, the flesh swollen and weeping. She's sedated currently, unconscious, her flanks rising and falling in a slow rhythm. The other 2 cubs? Sarah asks, though she already knows the answer from Elena's expression. Dead, killed by the same poachers. Elena's voice cracks. Nala is all that's left of her family. Sarah feels her knees weaken. She sits down hard on the ground, unable to look away from Nala, the lioness who rejected her different cub, who chose survival of the majority over the individual. The mother who walked away. Does Ghost know? Sarah asks. No. They're on opposite ends of the property. Ghost can't smell her, can't see her. Elena crouches beside Sarah. But Sarah, I need to tell you something else. Something worse. Sarah looks at her, seeing real fear in Elena's eyes for the first time. Nala's injuries are severe. The infection has spread to her bloodstream. Sepsis. We're treating her aggressively, but her immune system is compromised. She's been malnourished for weeks, possibly months. The Pride was struggling even before the poachers. What are you saying? I'm saying her prognosis is poor. Maybe 20% survival rate, even with perfect care. Elena's hand finds Sarah's shoulder. I'm saying she might not make it. And if she doesn't, Sarah understands immediately. If she dies, Ghost will never get to know his mother. Will never get answers about why she left him. More than that, Elena squeezes her shoulder. If she dies, the last genetic link to Ghost's family is gone. He'll be alone in a way that's final. They sit in silence, watching Nala breathe. Sarah thinks about karma, about cosmic justice, about a universe where mothers who abandon their young meet tragic ends. But she's a scientist, and she knows the universe doesn't work that way. Nala didn't deserve this. Her crime was making an impossible choice in an impossible situation. What do you need from me? Sarah asks. Help me save her. Elena's voice is desperate now. I'm a good vet, but you're better. You've published research on Lyme disease management, trauma recovery. Nala needs every advantage. She needs you. Sarah thinks about Ghost, 3 months old, thriving with Tao, utterly content in his new life. She thinks about telling him, someday, when he's old enough to understand, that his mother came back but died before they could meet. That Sarah had the chance to save her and didn't try hard enough. Show me her chart, Sarah says, standing. Let's get to work. Saving Nala becomes Sarah's entire world. She moves into the guest quarters at Samburu permanently, setting up a rotation with James to maintain her Mara research responsibilities. For 18 hours a day, she's at Nala's side, monitoring vitals, adjusting medications, fighting the infection that's trying to claim the Lioness's life. Nala wakes on day 2, groggy and disoriented. She tries to stand, can't, growls in frustration and pain. Sarah approaches slowly, speaking in soft tones, though she knows Nala doesn't remember her. Easy, Mama. Easy. We're trying to help you. Nala's amber eyes, so like Ghost's, though different in color, tracks Sarah with suspicion. But she's too weak to do more than growl. Sarah performs her examination quickly. Temperature still elevated at 103.5, heart rate too fast, the snare wound oozing despite antibiotic treatment. We need to debride the wound, Sarah tells Elena. Cut away the dead tissue, clean it properly. It's her best shot. The surgery happens that afternoon, with both vets working in tandem. Nala is fully anesthetized, her breathing supported by equipment Elena usually reserves for the most critical cases. Sarah cuts away necrotic flesh, revealing the extent of damage. The snare cut through muscle, nearly to bone. Jesus, Elena mutters. How did she walk on this? Desperation. Sarah irrigates the wound, flushing out infection. She was trying to get home, I'd bet. Trying to get back to her territory, her cubs. Sarah's voice catches. Trying to protect what was left. They work for 3 hours, removing damaged tissue, treating exposed muscle, closing in layers. Nala comes through the surgery alive, but barely. Her vitals remain precarious. Sarah sits beside her cage through the night, watching the rise and fall of her breathing, willing her to fight. Day 3 brings marginal improvement. Temperature drops to 102. Heart rate decreases slightly. Nala wakes long enough to drink water that Sarah offers in a shallow bowl. The lioness looks at her with eyes clouded by pain and medication, but there's something else there too. Recognition, maybe, that this human is trying to help. That's it, Sarah encourages. You're a fighter, just like your son. The moment the words leave her mouth, Sarah freezes. She hasn't told Elena that she plans to introduce Nala and Ghost. Hasn't let herself think about what that meeting might look like, what it might mean. But day 4 brings a crisis that makes all other decisions irrelevant. Nala crashes in the early morning, her temperature spiking to 105, her breathing turning rapid and shallow. Sarah and Elena work frantically. Ice baths to reduce fever, oxygen support, medications pushed through 4 lines. For 2 hours, they fight death to a standstill. And lose. At 6:47 a.m., exactly 3 months after Sarah first found Ghost, Nala's heart stops. Elena performs chest compressions while Sarah bags the Lioness, forcing air into her lungs. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 3. Sarah, Elena says quietly. She's gone. No. Sarah continues bagging. We can bring her back. We just need. Sarah. Elena's hand covers hers, stopping the movement. She's gone. There's no brain activity. She's not coming back. Sarah slumps over Nala's body, exhausted and defeated. They were so close. Nala was improving. Another few days, and she might have turned the corner. But nature doesn't negotiate. Death doesn't care about dramatic timing or narrative satisfaction. Sarah sits back, numb, and looks at Nala's still face. The Lioness looks peaceful now, the pain finally released. Sarah thinks about Ghost, playing with Tao in his enclosure, unaware that his mother just died 50 meters away. That the chance for reconciliation, for understanding, for closure, died with her. I need to tell Ghost, Sarah says. Elena looks at her like she's lost her mind. Sarah, he's 3 months old. He doesn't remember her. This won't mean anything to him. It means something to me. Sarah stands on shaking legs. He deserves to know. To say goodbye, even if he doesn't understand what he's saying goodbye to. That's anthropomorphizing. Projecting human emotions. I don't care. Sarah's voice is sharp, all her grief converting to anger. I'm taking Ghost to see his mother. He needs to know where he came from, even if it's just this once. Elena opens her mouth to argue, then closes it. She nods slowly. Okay, but I'm coming with you. And if Ghost shows any signs of distress, we stop immediately. They prepare Nala's body, cleaning her, arranging her in a natural resting position. Sarah walks to Ghost's enclosure with her heart in her throat. Tao sees her first, standing and chuffing in greeting. Ghost, playing with a log, looks up and chirps happily. Sarah enters the enclosure, Elena hovering near the gate with a sedation dart just in case. Tao approaches, sensing Sarah's distress, pressing his face against her in comfort. Ghost bounds over, clumsy and cheerful, expecting play. Hey, baby, Sarah says, scooping him up. Ghost is heavy now, maybe 30 pounds, all paws and awkward adolescent proportions. His white fur is perfect, his blue eyes bright with health and contentment. I need you to come with me. Need to show you something important. Ghost purrs, completely trusting. Tao follows them out of the enclosure, unwilling to let Ghost out of his sight. The 3 of them, woman, white cub, teenage lion, make a strange procession across the conservancy. They reach the holding pen. Sarah carries Ghost inside, Tao forced to wait outside the fence. Ghost is curious, alert, taking in the new smells. Then he sees Nala. The cub goes completely still in Sarah's arms. Sarah sets him down gently. Ghost doesn't run to Nala, doesn't cry out. He just stands there, staring at the lioness's body, his small head tilted in confusion or recognition or something Sarah can't name. Then, slowly, Ghost walks forward, step by step, until he's standing beside Nala's head. He sniffs her carefully, taking in her scent. His ears flatten. His tail droops. He knows. Somehow, impossibly, he knows this is his mother. Ghost makes a sound Sarah's never heard from him before, a low, mournful cry that sounds like heartbreak given voice. He presses his face against Nala's, nudging her the way cubs do when they want attention. Nala doesn't move. Ghost tries again, more insistent. He paws at her face, her shoulder. He climbs onto her body, as if trying to wake her through sheer determination. Ghost, Sarah whispers, tears streaming down her face. Baby, she can't wake up. She's gone. But Ghost doesn't understand gone. He just knows his mother is here, finally here, and she won't respond to him, won't groom him or feed him or acknowledge his existence. She's rejecting him one final time, and it's not even her choice. Ghost stands on Nala's flank and throws back his head. The sound that emerges is somewhere between a cub's cry and an adult's roar, too big for his small body, too full of grief for any creature to contain. Tao, outside the fence, responds with his own roar, a sound of empathy, of shared pain, of I'm here. Ghost hears Tao, and his demeanor changes. He looks at the fence, at the young male lion watching with obvious distress. Then Ghost looks back at Nala one more time. He touches his nose to hers, a gesture of goodbye that Sarah recognizes from her research, the way lions acknowledge death in their pride. Then Ghost walks away from his mother, away from the lioness who gave him life but couldn't give him acceptance. He walks to the fence where Tao waits, and the big male reaches through to groom him, to comfort him, to remind him that he's not alone. Sarah watches through her tears and understands. Ghost is choosing his family, not the one he was born to, but the one that chose him back. She picks Ghost up, carries him back to Tao's enclosure. The two lions curl up together immediately, Tao wrapped protectively around the white cub, both of them seeking comfort in each other's presence. You did the right thing, Elena says quietly, standing beside Sarah at the observation window, letting him say goodbye. Did I? Sarah's voice is hollow. Or did I just traumatize him for my own emotional closure? Maybe both. Maybe neither. Elena puts an arm around Sarah's shoulders. But he knows now. He knows she existed, that she was real. And when he's older, when he understands more, you can tell him the whole story. Why she left. How you found him. The choice she made and the choice you made. Sarah nods, watching Ghost sleep in Tao's embrace. The white cub's face is peaceful now, the grief processed in whatever way a 3-month-old lion processes such things. Nala is buried that afternoon in a corner of the conservancy, beneath an acacia tree. Elena says a few words, something about the circle of life, about sacrifice and survival. Sarah can't speak. She just stands there, wondering if Nala knew, in those final moments before the snare closed around her leg, that Ghost had survived, that the cub she abandoned had beaten the odds. Sarah hopes she knew, hopes it brought her some peace. But we never get to know what the dead think. We only get to live with our own choices, our own memories, our own grief. The week after Nala's death is hard. Ghost is subdued, clinging to Tao more than usual, less interested in play. Sarah visits every day, bringing enrichment items, trying to coax him back to his normal exuberant self. Tao, remarkable as always, seems to understand what Ghost needs. He's gentler than usual, more patient with the cub's mood swings. He grooms Ghost for hours, the repetitive gesture clearly soothing for both of them. On day 8, Sarah arrives to find Ghost playing again, attacking Tao's tail, ambushing him from behind rocks, practicing the hunting behaviors that will someday be instinct. The grief hasn't disappeared, but it's integrated into who Ghost is, part of his story rather than the totality of his existence. He's resilient, Elena observes. They all are, really. It's how they survive. Sarah's phone buzzes with an email notification. She glances at it, then reads more carefully. It's from Rebecca, the journalist who first covered Ghost's story. Sarah, I wanted you to know, Ghost's story has reached over 10 million people worldwide. The video you sent of him meeting Tao has been shared by major conservation organizations. We've received thousands of messages from people saying Ghost inspired them to support wildlife sanctuaries, to adopt animals, to make different choices. He matters, Sarah, not just as a data point or a success story, but as proof that compassion changes things. That intervention, when done thoughtfully, can work. I'm attaching photos from supporters around the world, paintings, drawings, poems, all about Ghost. I thought you might want to see what he's become to people. Thank you for saving him. Thank you for trusting me to share his story. Rebecca. Sarah opens the attachment, scrolling through hundreds of images. A child's crayon drawing of a white lion with a red heart. A professional painting of Ghost and Tao, rendered in breathtaking detail. Poems in a dozen languages, all celebrating Ghost's survival. Elena, Sarah calls. Come look at this. They sit together, reviewing the images, reading the messages. People from every continent, every background, all touched by one white cub's journey from rejection to belonging. You created a movement, Elena says softly. One cub at a time, but still, a movement. Ghost created it. Sarah zooms in on a photo of a classroom full of children holding Save Ghost signs. He just existed. We just amplified his existence. That night, Sarah makes a decision. She's going to write a book about Ghost, a scientific memoir that documents his rescue, his development, his unique bond with Tao. Not a sensationalized account, but a rigorous, honest exploration of intervention ethics, wildlife rehabilitation, and the complex question of when humans should interfere with nature. She pitches it to a university press. They respond within days. Yes, absolutely. When can you start? Sarah starts immediately, writing in the early mornings before observation work, in the late evenings after Ghost's bedtime checks. The words pour out of her, all the fear and hope and uncertainty of the past 4 months, distilled into prose that she hopes will help other researchers facing similar choices. She titles it, White in a World of Gold, One Cub, One Choice, One Chance. Ghost is 6 months old, 35 pounds, and full of opinions about everything. He has preferences now, favorite sleeping spots, preferred prey toys, specific times when he wants attention and times when he wants to be left alone. His personality has emerged fully, bold but not reckless, affectionate but independent, curious about everything. His bond with Tao has evolved into something unique in Sarah's research experience. They're not father-son, not quite brothers, not mentor-student exactly. They're partners, each providing something the other needs. Tao gets purpose, companionship, a reason to engage with life. Ghost gets security, education, unconditional acceptance. Sarah documents everything, building a dataset that challenges existing literature on lion social development. Ghost is hitting every milestone on schedule, despite being hand-raised initially and socially isolated from typical pride structure. Tao, it turns out, is teaching Ghost everything a pride would: hunting technique, social signals, territorial behavior. The only thing Tao can't teach is camouflage. Ghost remains spectacularly visible, his white fur like a beacon in every environment. But in the safety of the conservancy, visibility isn't a death sentence. It's just Ghost being Ghost. Rebecca returns for a follow-up article, this time bringing a film crew. They want to create a short documentary about Ghost's first 6 months, his relationship with Tao, the broader implications for wildlife intervention. Sarah agrees, with conditions. Ghost's welfare comes first. Filming must be minimally invasive, and the documentary must include honest discussion of intervention ethics, not just feel-good narratives. The resulting film, The White Lion, a story of survival, premieres at an international wildlife film festival. It wins Best Documentary Short. More importantly, it sparks global conversation about how humans can help wildlife without creating dependency or disrupting natural processes. Sarah becomes a reluctant expert, invited to conferences to discuss Ghost's case. She presents data, shows videos, answers questions. Always, she emphasizes the same points. Intervention isn't always right. Success isn't guaranteed, and every case requires individual assessment. But some cases, like Ghost's, prove that thoughtful intervention can work, can save a life worth saving. Ghost's first birthday is celebrated with a feast of enrichment items and his favorite treats. He's 80 pounds now, still small for his age, but healthy and strong. His adult teeth are coming in, replacing baby teeth that Tao has carefully collected and buried, a behavior Elena has never observed in males before. Ghost's mane is starting to develop, white as the rest of him, giving him an ethereal appearance. He looks like something from mythology, a ghost king ruling over his domain. Tao is now 3 years old, fully grown, magnificent. His mane is filled out completely, reddish gold and thick. He's protective of Ghost in a way that goes beyond typical male lion behavior, displaying maternal-like vigilance. Sarah's book publishes to positive reviews. It becomes required reading in several wildlife management programs. She starts getting emails from researchers facing their own intervention dilemmas, asking for guidance. Ghost's first birthday is celebrated with a feast of enrichment items and his favorite treats. He's 80 pounds now, still small for his age, but healthy and strong. His adult teeth are coming in, replacing baby teeth that Tao has carefully collected and buried, a behavior Elena has never observed in males before. Ghost's mane is starting to develop, white as the rest of him, giving him an ethereal appearance. He looks like something from mythology, a ghost king ruling over his domain. Tao is now 3 years old, fully grown, magnificent. His mane is filled out completely, reddish gold and thick. He's protective of Ghost in a way that goes beyond typical male lion behavior, displaying maternal-like vigilance. Sarah's book publishes to positive reviews. It becomes required reading in several wildlife management programs. She starts getting emails from researchers facing their own intervention dilemmas, asking for guidance. She answers every one, sharing what she's learned. Trust your instincts, but verify them with data. Consider long-term welfare, not just immediate survival. Build support systems before you need them. And always have an exit plan. The Mara Research Center offers Sarah a promotion, Director of Conservation Intervention Programs, a newly created position designed to formalize protocols around wildlife rescue. She accepts, on the condition that she maintains her relationship with Ghost, continues her research at Samburu. Margaret agrees. You've earned it. And frankly, we need someone with your experience leading this work. You've proven intervention can be done ethically. Sarah splits her time now between the Mara and Samburu, documenting both wild lion populations and Ghost's continued development. She's building comparative data sets that will inform conservation practices for decades. But more than the data, more than the publications and accolades, Sarah treasures her visits with Ghost. Watching him grow into himself, seeing his personality flourish, witnessing his bond with Tao deepen into something science can measure but never fully explain. One afternoon, Ghost, now too large to be called a cub, walks up to the observation window where Sarah stands. He presses his face against the glass, those blue eyes meeting hers with unmistakable recognition. She presses her hand to the glass on her side. Ghost places his paw against the same spot, separated from her palm by just inches. "Hey, baby," Sarah whispers. "You've gotten so big." Ghost rumbles, a sound halfway between a purr and a roar, uniquely his. Then he turns and bounds back to Tao, ready for play. Sarah watches them wrestle, two lions who shouldn't work as a pair, but do, who found family in unexpected places, who prove that survival is about more than genetics and camouflage. It's about finding where you belong, even if that place doesn't look like anything you imagined. 18 months after Sarah first found Ghost in the tall grass, crying for a mother who wouldn't return, she receives a call from Elena that changes everything one final time. "Sarah, you need to see this. Don't ask questions, just come." "Ghost is fine," Elena adds quickly, knowing Sarah's mind immediately goes to worst-case scenarios. "He's perfect, but there's something, just come." Sarah drives to Samburu, her curiosity building with every kilometer. She arrives to find Elena waiting with an expression Sarah can't read, excitement mixed with wonder mixed with something else. "Follow me," is all Elena says. They walk past Ghost and Tao's enclosure. Sarah waves to them, receiving enthusiastic chuffs in response. But Elena leads her in the opposite direction, toward the new construction area where Nala died over a year ago. The temporary holding pen has been replaced by a proper enclosure, medium-sized, with natural vegetation and a water feature. And inside that enclosure, lying in the shade, is a lioness. A tawny lioness with 3 cubs. Sarah's breath catches. Elena, who Kenya Wildlife Service brought her in 3 days ago. Another snare victim, found near the Tanzanian border. She's injured but recovering. Elena's voice is soft. Sarah, she's from the Mara River Pride. We confirmed it through her identification markings. She's Nala's sister. Sarah stares, processing this impossible information. Nala's sister? That would make these cubs ghost cousins. First cousins, genetically. Elena watches the cubs play, tumbling over each other in the evening light. The mother, we're calling her Serafina, she survived the snare. But she's lost a rear paw. She can't be released back to the wild. She's ours now. Sarah can't speak. The universe doesn't work this way, doesn't offer this kind of symmetry. But here it is anyway. Ghost's family, delivered to the same facility where he lives, against impossible odds. Sarah. Elena turns to face her directly. I need to ask you something. It's crazy, but I think it might work. Ghost needs Pride experience eventually. He's nearly adult now, but he's never been part of a proper line social structure. And Serafina's cubs need a mature male influence as they grow. Tao is wonderful, but he and Ghost don't represent a typical Pride dynamic. Sarah sees where this is going. You want to introduce them? Ghost, Tao, Serafina, and the cubs. Create an artificial Pride. A family, Elena corrects. Not typical, not natural, but functional. Ghost could finally have what Nala couldn't give him. Acceptance from his blood relatives. And Sarah. Elena pauses, her eyes shining. One of Serafina's cubs is leucistic. Not as extreme as Ghost, more cream-colored than white, but definitely different. Serafina is caring for him perfectly. She didn't reject him. Sarah feels something crack open in her chest. A leucistic cub, accepted by its mother, proof that Nala's rejection wasn't inevitable. That different circumstances, different resources, different pressures create different outcomes. When can we start introductions? Sarah asks. The introduction process takes 6 weeks, careful and methodical. Fence line meetings first, allowing all parties to see and smell each other. Ghost is curious about the cubs, Tao is protective but non-aggressive, and Serafina is cautiously interested. The leucistic cub, they name her Zuri, meaning beautiful in Swahili, seems especially drawn to Ghost. She watches him through the fence with fascination, as if recognizing something familiar in his appearance. When they finally allow direct contact, supervised and carefully controlled, everything unfolds like a choreographed dance. Serafina approaches Ghost slowly, sniffing him thoroughly. Ghost holds still, submitting to her inspection. Then Serafina does something that makes Sarah's tears flow. She grooms Ghost's head, the gesture a mother uses with her own cubs. Ghost, starved for maternal affection his entire life, pushes into the contact desperately. Tao watches from nearby, ready to intervene if needed, but Serafina shows no aggression. She accepts Ghost, recognizes him as family in whatever way lionesses understand such things. The cubs are more straightforward. They see Ghost and Tao as potential playmates, nothing more complicated. Within hours, all 3 cubs are climbing on Ghost, biting his tail, attacking his ears. Ghost, patient and gentle, plays with them the way Tao played with him, teaching through interaction, building bonds through shared experience. Zuri, the leucistic cub, becomes Ghost's shadow. Where he goes, she follows. When he rests, she curls against him. Ghost returns her affection with obvious tenderness, grooming her carefully, protecting her from her more rambunctious siblings. Look at them. Elena breathes, watching the group interact. It works. It actually works. By week 3, they've created a permanent enclosure, 5 acres, beautifully designed, with space for everyone. Ghost, Tao, Serafina, and 3 cubs move in together, forming the strangest pride structure Sarah has ever documented. And they thrive. Serafina hunts. The Conservancy provides prey animals for enrichment, Tao supports her, and Ghost learns by watching and participating. The cubs grow up with 2 male role models, maternal care, and siblings to play with. It's not a wild pride, but it's functional, healthy, and genuinely happy. Sarah visits twice a week, documenting everything. Her research on artificial pride structures becomes groundbreaking, published in top-tier journals, cited in conservation plans worldwide. But more than the science, Sarah treasures these visits for what they represent. Ghost has everything now. Family, purpose, acceptance, love. He's no longer the rejected white cub crying in the grass. He's a pride male, raising his cousin, supporting his aunt, living a life that matters. Ghost is 3 years old, nearly 400 pounds, magnificent. His white mane has filled out completely, flowing like snow around his face. He looks mythical, impossible, like something imagined rather than real. But he's real, and he's content. Zuri is 18 months old, cream-colored rather than pure white, beautiful in her own unique way. She and Ghost are inseparable, their bond transcending typical pride dynamics. Ghost grooms her daily, hunts with her, rests with his body curved protectively around hers. Tao is now 5, fully mature, still gentle with the younger lions, but more confident in his authority. He and Ghost have developed a co-leadership structure unusual in male lions. They share responsibility, make decisions together, complement each other's strengths. Serafina's other 2 cubs are thriving, normal in coloring and development. The entire pride functions like a family, complicated, sometimes messy, but fundamentally loving. Sarah's book has become a bestseller, translated into 15 languages. The documentary has been viewed by 30 million people. Ghost's story has raised millions for wildlife conservation, funded new sanctuaries, inspired a generation of researchers to approach intervention with both compassion and rigor. But none of that matters as much as this. Ghost is happy. Sarah knows it in the way he plays, the confidence in his movements, the contentment in his expressions. He's not mourning what he lost anymore. He's celebrating what he found. On a quiet afternoon, Sarah sits at the observation window, watching Ghost and Zuri rest together in the shade. Elena joins her, bringing coffee. You ever regret it? Elena asks. Intervening that morning? Sarah considers the question seriously. Ghost will never know true freedom, will never hunt wild prey or roam vast territories. His life is circumscribed by fences, managed by humans, fundamentally different from what nature intended. But looking at him, surrounded by family, secure in his identity, genuinely content, Sarah knows her answer. No, she says simply. I don't regret it for a second. That evening, as Sarah prepares to leave, Ghost approaches the observation window. He's done this countless times over the years, but today feels different. Ghost sits at the glass, those blue eyes meeting Sarah's with perfect clarity. And then he does something he's never done before. He lifts one massive paw and places it against the glass, exactly where Sarah's hand rests on her side. The gesture mirrors what he did as a cub, but the meaning has changed. It's not need now. It's gratitude. Sarah presses her forehead against the glass, and Ghost mirrors the gesture. For a long moment, they stay like that. The human who saved him and the lion who survived, connected across species, across difference, across impossible odds. Thank you, Sarah whispers, though she's not sure if she's thanking Ghost or if he's thanking her. Maybe both. Maybe it doesn't matter. Ghost rumbles, that unique sound that's entirely his, then turns and walks back to his family. To Tao, who's been his father in all the ways that matter. To Zuri, who represents hope that difference can be accepted. To Serafina, who gave him the maternal love his own mother couldn't. Sarah watches until darkness falls and the pride settles for sleep. A tangle of tawny and white and cream, a family that shouldn't exist but does. The next morning, Sarah returns to the Mara for her research work. But her phone is filled with photos Lioness sent overnight. Ghost playing with the cubs, Tao grooming Serafina, Zuri sleeping with her head on Ghost's back. A family. Not the one nature intended, but the one love built. Sarah opens her laptop and begins writing the final chapter of her new book, the follow-up to the first, tracking Ghost's journey from survival to thriving. She titles it, Beyond Survival, When Rescued Animals Rescue Us. Because that's what Ghost did. He rescued Sarah from thinking that intervention was always wrong, that natural selection was the only answer, that different meant doomed. He proved that sometimes the right choice is the hard choice. The choice to interfere, to care, to fight for a life that matters even when the odds say it won't work. Ghost matters. He always did. From that first morning in the grass, crying for a mother who couldn't love him the way he needed, to now, a pride male with a family who chose him, who sees his difference as beautiful rather than fatal. The story ends here, where it began, with a choice. Not Nala's choice to walk away, but Sarah's choice to stay. To pick up a white cub and promise him a future, even when she had no right to make that promise. Except it turns out she did have the right. Because Ghost lived. He more than lived, he flourished. And in flourishing, he taught everyone watching that compassion matters, that intervention can work, that different doesn't mean less. It just means different. And different, sometimes, is exactly what the world needs. The email arrives on a Tuesday morning, 5 years after Sarah first held a 3-week-old white cub in her arms. Dr. Chun, you don't know me, but you changed my daughter's life. She's 12 now, and when she was 7, she watched the documentary about Ghost. She'd been bullied for years for being different. She has vitiligo, a condition that creates white patches on her skin. She was ashamed, withdrawn, suicidal at 7 years old. Then she saw Ghost. Saw how his difference made him beautiful, not broken. How he found family that accepted him. How he survived and thrived despite everything. She's a different child now. Confident, proud of her uniqueness. She wants to be a wildlife veterinarian, wants to save animals the way you saved Ghost. I know you probably receive hundreds of messages like this, but I needed you to know, Ghost didn't just change your life. He changed ours too. He taught my daughter that being different isn't a curse. It's a gift. Thank you for giving her that. Thank you for giving all of us that. With gratitude, Maria Santos. Sarah reads the email 3 times, tears streaming down her face. She thinks about Ghost, now 8 years old, still living happily at Sambaru with his unconventional pride. About all the children who've seen his story and found hope in his survival. About a mother lioness who made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. About a white cub who refused to give up, even when everything said he should. About the power of one decision, one intervention, one moment of compassion to ripple outward in ways we can never predict or measure. Sarah types a response, her fingers steady despite her tears. Dear Maria, please tell your daughter that Ghost would be proud to know he helped her. That difference is beautiful. That she matters, exactly as she is. And tell her this, some of us are born different. But all of us deserve to find our pride. The family that sees us, truly sees us, and loves us anyway. Ghost found his. Your daughter will find hers too. With love, Dr. Sarah Chun. She hits send, then opens her photo album, scrolling to the most recent pictures Elena sent. Ghost and Zuri, fully grown now, resting together in the afternoon sun. His white mane glowing like starlight. Her cream coat perfect against the golden grass. 2 lions who were born different and survived anyway. 2 lives that mattered, that continue to matter, that will matter for as long as their story is told. Sarah closes her laptop and looks out at the Mara grasslands, where somewhere, lion prides are raising their cubs, teaching them to hunt, preparing them for survival in a world that's beautiful and brutal in equal measure. She thinks about Nala, buried under an acacia tree in Sambaru. about the choice that Lioness made and the choice Sarah made in response, about how we can't always understand why things happen the way they do, but we can choose how we respond. We can choose compassion over indifference, action over paralysis, hope over despair. We can choose to see a white cub in the grass and say, "You matter. Your life has value. I will fight for you," even when everything says it's hopeless. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that choice changes everything. Sarah stands and walks to her vehicle, ready to begin the day's observations. But before she starts the engine, she whispers 4 words into the African morning. "Thank you, ghost. Thank you." The wind carries her words across the grassland, across the miles to Samburu, where a white lion sleeps in the sun, surrounded by family, completely content. He doesn't hear her words. But maybe, in some way beyond language or species or understanding, he knows. He survived. He thrived. He mattered. And that's everything. Ghost's story is real in all the ways that matter. Not because these exact events happen to these exact animals, but because stories like this happen every day. White lions do exist. Cubs are rejected. Impossible choices must be made. If Ghost's journey moved you, consider supporting wildlife sanctuaries and conservation organizations that do this work every day, that give rejected animals second chances, that prove different doesn't mean doomed. Visit reputable sanctuaries. Donate if you can. Share stories of conservation success. And remember, sometimes the smallest act of compassion creates ripples that change the world. Ghost's legacy isn't just survival. It's hope. It's proof that caring matters, that intervention, done thoughtfully, ethically, carefully, can work, that every life deserves a chance to flourish. Thank you for witnessing Ghost's journey. May it inspire you to see the different, the struggling, the rejected among us, whether animal or human, and choose compassion every time.